All right. Welcome to another weekend, actually, now that we are doing this thing twice a week. The weekend edition of this conversation. And today we will focus more on the politics. What's going on? And clearly, the finance bill is not going to go away soon. And I keep getting that feedback. I have done 2 videos so far on the finance bill. I have been very hesitant to get into the details of the finance bill because the fact about the details of the finance bill is that you will never be able to justify why you're going to ask people to pay additional taxes. And I'll keep quoting, and I know there was somebody who was quoting Winston Churchill when he said that for a government to try and tax itself to prosperity is like trying to lift yourself from a bucket when you're standing in it. True, he made that quote. But he's also the one who made the quote of, there is nothing like good taxes. And what he meant is, there is no point at which you will ever convince people that it is a good idea to pay taxes. It is always something that is done after the event. You pay taxes, and then after the event, you see what the taxes have done, and you're like, okay, sour, right? And of course, we have had the conversation about why we pay taxes. We have agreed that we pay taxes so that we can take care of the common issues to us, whether it is transport, infrastructure, communications, healthcare, education. There are very many things. Security as a fundamental issue, that of what we raise money from taxes to take care of. Of course, there's also that statement that taxes is what civilized nations pay to remain civilized, and I have explained that. Today, I want to talk about the politics of the finance bill. I was talking to some friends of mine, and we were having the conversations about the political divide. And they were trying to analyze why Azimio seems so focused on ensuring that this finance bill does not pass. Recently, Raila Odinga even did a press conference, literally pleading with the president to withdraw this finance bill. The amount of viciousness and the attacks that have been done on the finance bill, you'd wonder why. It is just one of 5 finance bills this government is going to present during its first term in office. So how many people understand what the finance bill is? The finance bill, let me explain just for somebody who does not know. The finance bill is an explanation of where the government is going to get its money from. The finance bill is what comes before the budget. The finance bill is your prospectus. This year, we expect to get money from here, 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 here. Once you have a finance bill and it is passed by Parliament, then you create a budget. The budget is connected to the finance bill. The budget says, when we get the money we expect to get from the finance bill, this is how we will spend it. So you can't create a budget before you create a finance bill. So the politics of this finance bill. We've had this statement over and over again that this is the first finance bill for the President Ruto administration. When he got into office on the budget that had been passed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. This is the first time he's creating his own budget and he's determining his own ways of raising money to run his government. And this is where the politics of this particular finance bill get into place. President Ruto has determined that if he can get the money that he has projected through the finance bill, he'll be able to create a budget that will enable him to deliver the promises that he made when he was campaigning. Now, let's just assume that is correct. Let's assume that he actually does a budget, and that budget enables, that the budget he come up with enables him to deliver to Mama Mboga, to Watu ya Boda Boda, and to the hustler community. If that were to happen, then what would happen is that the politics would change, because then he would start delivering on his promises. So now reverse yourself and assume you are somebody who doesn't want him to succeed. Would you actually support a budget that he's going to come up with? No, you would not. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, yes, Azimio is an opposition party. It's an opposition coalition. Anything they are hostile to that the government wants to do is the kind of thing that if it is done, they will lose. Let me repeat that. If your enemy is telling you not to do something, what does that mean? That if you do it, it's going to benefit you, it's going to disadvantage him, right? So let's come back to Azimio and ask ourselves. Azimio is so firm, so convinced that the finance bill is a bad thing, right? Azimio does not want President Ruto to succeed. So if they're so sure that the finance bill is a bad thing and they don't want him to succeed, what does that tell you? And I think this is the kind of politics that we need to have a conversation about. And to some extent, I think the Kenya Kwanza side needs to raise that conversation and bring it to the public. And we need to start asking ourselves why Azimio is so convinced that this is a bad bill, despite the fact that they cannot want a good bill, because they certainly will not want Ruto to succeed. And my position, this is Ruto's first finance bill. We agree there's no time we will agree that we want to pay taxes. So he's come up with a plan. He says, if I can get money from here, 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 then I can be able to deliver certain things. So this finance bill is going to be connected to a budget. And maybe the conversation we need to be having is, where is the budget for this finance bill, right? So that we move this conversation forward. But at the same time, the politics of this finance bill need to keep being brought up. And I want to urge the political support structures around the president, the members of parliament, the members of the Senate. This is your time to bring this point out. That for sure, the fact that Azimio is fighting it so strongly, most probably is because there is the assumption that if this thing was to pass, Ruto would get stronger and he might actually be able to deliver what he promised. That's the conversation that isn't out there. Nobody is asking why is Azimio. Azimio wants to present itself as being very interested in stopping this bill because it is going to harm Wanjiku. If that was the case, they would have come up with an alternative. They would be telling us, this is a bad bill. This is the kind of bill the president should have come up with that is going to help Wanjiku. They haven't come up with an alternative bill. All they're doing is poking holes into this particular finance bill. So the question you ask yourself, assuming we discard this particular finance bill, and then what? Where are we going to raise money from to run government for the next 12 months? So hey, conversation continues. Next week is going to be very interesting because you're going to have the debate in Parliament. You're going to hear the various arguments. But this particular argument of Azimio saying that this is a bad bill, that one you need to discard it. Because of course, there's nothing that Azimio would say is good that is being done by this government. Anything that this government does will face hostility, will be undermined by the opposition. It's the unfortunate way about how we do our politics. I've always wished that we could do politics where when something is right, you say it's right. When something is wrong, you say it's wrong. But we have an opposition that will never say something is right that is done by this government, even when it is right. So first discard anything they say that they mean that this is wrong. Because of course, it can't be right as far as they're concerned. There's nothing this government will ever do that will be right. But then let's go into the next step. Assuming you don't want to pass this bill, then what happens? What is the prospectus of where we're going to get money to run government for the next 12 months? Because there must be a finance bill. Why can't Azimio give their suggestions? Do this, because this is the kind of budget we want to run. Because let me tell you something, my fellow Kenyans. If we do not have a finance bill, just for a minute, let's assume we threw this finance bill out. How are we going to raise money to finance the next year's operations of government? Because they must be financed. We have I think close to 500,000 people who are employed by the public service, policemen, army, just the Kenyans who depend on this government and the taxes we pay to pay their bills, educate their children, and live. Then we have all the other people who supply to this government so that they can build hospitals, can build schools. That is another fraternity of Kenyans who depend on the taxes that we raise. We're not being told about those ones. Every time I hear somebody saying government is taking money, it's like that money is going to be taken and eaten by some non-Kenyan somewhere. Whatever money is going to be taken from taxes actually goes back to Kenyans as supplies, as salaries, somehow, because the money circulates within this ecosystem, financial ecosystem of our country. So that money is actually going to circulate within us. If we were to assume we're not going to raise any money, because that's the other alternative, then what are we going to do, right? So let's have a real conversation. Let's first agree we have bills we have to pay. Let's agree we need a finance bill so that it can tell us where we're going to raise money from. Then let's move to the conversation about the budget of the money we will raise, where it will go. And let's talk from a realistic perspective. Let's not be idealists. You cannot tell me that you don't want to raise money through certain things. Then tell me where we have a budget we need to raise. Okay, you don't want me to raise it through here. Where do you want me to raise it from? Or what do you want us to sacrifice? As a country, tell me, okay, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Cut it down, right? That now will be a real conversation. So that's where I would be. We'll continue this conversation, and especially we'll watch, in the middle of the week, we'll watch how the actual conversation will be in Parliament, what kind of debate will be there. We'll see what arguments government will come in with. We'll see what arguments, counter-arguments the opposition will come up with, and we'll make a decision. But my position is to all Kenyans who are not involved in the actual legislative work. Let us remember, opposition is playing politics, government is playing politics. We are here, can we also play our own politics? We need money to circulate in the country. Where will it come from? All right. My final word. We've got the coffee conference going on in Meru that was being chaired or being conducted by the Deputy President. Brilliant concept. One of the things that I found very, very interesting is that we don't have a single farmer representative in the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. That tells you what is wrong with how we trade coffee. Coffee is produced by farmers. There's a value chain, there's a chain, a supply chain that comes from the farmer to the consumer of coffee. It includes a cooperative, it has a miller, it has an exporter, it has a marketer. Everybody says everybody in between there makes more money than the farmer. Somebody asked, why can't you allow farm coffee to be sold the same way you sell mboga and maize and wheat and flowers, right? Flower companies are the next closest thing to coffee farmers we have. Flowers are a big export commodity. It's a liberal market. The companies that do flowers find their own markets, pack their flowers, export them, right? And the farmers make money. Who own the farms? Can't we do the same thing with our coffee? Can we make sure that the person who makes the most amount of money from coffee is actually the person who plants the coffee? If we do that, everybody, first we're going to build up our coffee supply and quantity in the country, whether it's been going down. Second, we're going to actually increase the amount of money we have flowing around the country. So well done to the Deputy President and his team, and of course, under the guidance of the President, for coming up with this conversation about coffee. I know you have tea coming up. I know you have meal coming up under Maudu Matatu. And we're looking forward to seeing how that goes. Sisi tunaendelea kuuza chai na mandazi at Ruare. Please pay us a visit when you can. Nyama choma pia. We'll bring in coffee as well and make sure we have local coffee being brewed and sold here. And let's build our country. God bless you. God bless Kenya. Thank you.